Hello and what is up YouTube? My name is G3Iron and welcome to today's discussion where we're just over 24 hours away from the 316 Scourge League dropping, and I wanted to give you all some hints and hopefully have some discussion about what is it that makes League's starters suck. What is it that makes a particular player's league start go from potentially awesome to being something that, well, leads them come Monday to no longer want to play the league anymore. If you're new to the channel, you can of course like, subscribe, and ding the bell to receive notifications about future video discussions just like this one for Scourge League. And if at any point throughout the video you've got a comment, a suggestion, feedback, or you simply disagree with something that I've said, you can feel free to drop us a comment down below. All right, so the number one thing that we need to talk about today is believing the lie that playing something good will automatically be fun. We have had more time to digest and theory craft builds for this upcoming league start than we've ever had before. Now, while POE wasn't necessarily updated at the exact moment that patch notes were live, we were able to at least start theory crafting what sorts of builds would be available as being good options to league start all the way back to a week ago. So having narrowed down our selections, and now we've all hopefully made some selections, or we're waiting on a few other folks to make last minute suggestions, like maybe I will do, maybe I won't. But if you're still waiting to make a league start suggestion or make a league start selection, you need to realize that there are lots of good options out there, and just because something is good doesn't mean it will be fun for you. For example, I hate playing minors. It is not fun for me to play a minor. Minors are really, really good, but they're not fun for me. Another example would be totems. I've played totems in the past. It's just not fun for me to play. Totems can be very, very strong, but it's not fun for me to play. So if I'm going to league start with a build that is good but not fun, chances are I'm going to drop the league sooner than I would if I was playing a build that was less strong but more fun for me. I love summoners as an archetype. They're fun for me to play. They may not be as good as other options, but because they are fun for me, it will mean that I will enjoy my time in Ray class and in 316 more than playing a build that might be better but less fun for me. So don't believe the lie that something is good will automatically make it fun. The second thing that can make your league start suck is believing the lie that your league starter is equally good at all content. No, it's not. Not all league starters are equal. Some league starters are better at specific content, at specific boss encounters, at specific map style encounters, at specific league content encounters than others. Some league start builds are weak to physical builds. I saw one league start video suggestion that went out and a whole bunch of people were on it. It had tens of thousands of views for this league, and someone simply asked the question, how does this deal with physical damage? The creator didn't respond. No one else in the community seemed to have an answer other than simply memeing on the comments question, which was, yeah, it really doesn't. It's going to die to physical hits. That is something that's out there. Some builds are weak to chaos damage. So if you're going to be doing a ton of content that deals a lot of chaos damage and you're playing a league starter and you're wondering, why am I dying all the time? Well, it's because you're interacting with content that does a bunch of chaos damage and your build is specifically weak to that style of damage. Other examples are builds that are not built to be able to take several hits in a row. Maybe you want to avoid that big hit, but maybe you take several successive hits, or maybe you're weak to dot. Maybe your build has no solution for big time ignites or for big time bleeds, and you're simply going to die from that. Maybe the old famous World of Warcraft phrase, don't stand in the burning ground. Like maybe your build simply doesn't have a way to really recover much while you're interacting in a .AOE. There's different things that league starter builds that do well, and there's different things that league starter builds do poorly. Recognize what your league starter that you've selected does well, so that way you can avoid or you can adapt for what it does poorly. All indicators are pointing towards 316 being a more zoom oriented league. So if you're going to play a more zoom oriented character, maybe you're going to need to adapt and switch out some items or switch out some links, or maybe have a backup plan for dealing with bosses. Maybe you shouldn't have early game bossing or early league bossing as your currency generation plan if you're playing a zoom map farmer. Conversely, maybe if you're playing a bossing build, then you shouldn't really worry about your clear speed or even clearing early maps, but rather simply rushing bosses and getting Atlas progression. That's an option. Don't believe the lie that your League starter, just because it's good, is equally good at all content. The third lie is believing the lie that because a build has uniques, it's automatically bad as a League starter. Uniques can be build enabling, especially early on in a league. I know typically folks like myself, I'm guilty of this. I've been here for years and I've said, hey, try to pick league starters that don't depend on uniques. It can really hamper you if you're league starting and your whole league start is dependent upon a particular unique and that unique becoming available to your build and then your build becoming online and being able to generate currency or generate whatever goals you want to reach for because of that one unique. Essentially, that unique becomes your choke point, and if you don't get it, yes, there's some wisdom in saying, all right, be aware of that. But there's also too far an extent of that wisdom where the point proves too much. Uniques can be build enabling. There are tons of build enabling uniques that allow you as a league start that otherwise doesn't have much currency, doesn't have much options, doesn't have as much utility as throughout your second or third or fourth character to be able to switch out different items at different points in time and continue to progress. Uniques can solve a ton of different issues for you early on in a league. While maybe you're looking and playing in a trade league and might say, well, this unique dropped for me and it's crap, it's got no value. Okay, it might not have any value, but it might have some value. It might solve some solution for your build. Do you know what uniques, if they drop or if they become available, if you're playing trade, you should purchase for a relatively low price early on because they will allow you to progress at a speed that it will make up for the amount of currency that you spent on it. Unless you're SSF, uniques can be traded for. You're not just dependent on drop rates. Unless you're SSF, rarity isn't nearly as deterministic for the availability of a unique. It's much more of a supply demand. There's a lot of players playing Trade League. There's going to be more players playing 316 than there were playing 315. So there's going to be a lot of stuff that's available. Spending some currency early on a unique to acquire something that will enable your build to progress further and faster is going to economically be worth it. So know for your build what uniques you should be looking out for as you are progressing in your league start. Just because a league starter has a unique as an option doesn't mean it's not a good league starter. Just be aware of that. Don't believe the lie that just because you see a unique in a POB means you shouldn't trust that POB or that build guide creator or take that style of approach. Just realize that's an option and maybe have even options ready for you about how you're going to acquire the currency to even get or trade or farm that particular unique. The fourth lie is believing that your first league starter choice will automatically be a success. Refusing to see that a build is failing you is a recipe to leave opening weekend disappointed and not wanting to come back again to play POE until 317 or further into the future. Know when to pivot to other options. In the last year or so, I have done this more often than not, where I've gone in, messed around with a few gems as I'm league starting, and then really make a decision as I'm going and progressing. Hey, here's 3 or 4 different league starters that are in my ascendancy range that I could choose. And then really making a decision once I ultimately see the feel of the game as it's released. And this is true now more than ever with the passive tree rebalance and with all the different changes that have happened and that are coming with the optimization of Scourge League in 316. We need to be more aware of this than ever. You need to know when to pivot. Don't just have a plan A and then don't have any other plan. If you're league starting, let's say as a ranger, make sure that if your intention is to go Pathfinder, that maybe if there's something else, another build that maybe uses a different gem or a different gem setup or even a different tree entirely, maybe be aware of where the overlapping paths are in the new tree, where that way you don't feel like you have to go use a bunch of regret orbs or a bunch of skill points to respec your tree. Maybe a simple gem swap out and 1 or 2 item swaps can actually improve your build if you're going from option A, but option A feels bad and is failing you, to option B, where maybe option B is actually doing better and you're able to progress, and maybe you're even having more fun. Are you dying too much? Maybe check your effective HP pool, check your mitigation. Are you low on damage? Maybe there's another link setup. I see players all the time just wanting to use one particular link configuration for damage while progressing through the acts and into early maps and for their league starters. There's a lot of different combinations of damage that you can pump out, whether that's using minions, whether that's using totems, whether that's using multiple different forms, whether that's using duration-based skill gems, while also using an active skill gem yourself while there's a duration that's going on an act boss or on a particular encounter. There's a lot of different options and a lot of utility that's available to you in Path of Exile. Don't think that option A is your only option to having a successful, fun league start. Maybe you're low on links. Where can you go and farm safely in a zone repeatedly until you get the amount of currency that you need to buy an upgrade, or until maybe something just drops for you? Are you using your available crafts on a bench? So many players don't like to craft things early on in a league. And while I recognize that currency is very valuable early on in the league, one of the early values of currency is recognizing that you've got a decent item, using a crafting slot on it, and then being able to continue to progress until you get something better to drop. Don't be afraid to use your crafting bench. If you're low on resistances, if you're low on health, if you're low on damage, use the options that you've got. Use the tools that are available for you to progress and to pivot when you see that there's a problem coming up with your starter build. Maybe auras. Auras with the new changes to mana reservation are going to be a big time solution for a lot of different builds. Of course, there's a lot of different early game on auras that players neglect or simply don't use at all while they are running through the early portions of the campaign, and that's a big loss. If you're taking too much damage, maybe you need some more regen. There's an aura for that. Maybe you're using your mana too much. Maybe you're hogging all your mana. There's an aura for that. Maybe you'd like to improve your damage relatively early on through the campaign. Chances are there's probably going to be an aura available to you by Act 3 for you to boost your specific damage build. Recognize when there's a problem in your build and then use the tools that are available to you. Be willing to go back to the basics, go back to the board and say, look, this is what's working with this league starter. What do I need to tweak? Don't refuse to see that something's not working. Build, adapt, improve, and go have fun with it. The last lie, our fifth lie today talking about, is believing the lie that RNG is the reason your league start sucks. I recognize that this is probably going to be the least popular one and the one that'll get me in the most trouble. And so feel free to just go away and don't listen at this point if you're easily offended. If you live in a glass house, you shouldn't throw rocks or change your clothes. Anyway, if you believe the lie that your last several league starts have sucked because you haven't gotten an exalt to drop, or you haven't gotten a unique to drop, or you haven't picked the right, particular configuration for your build. No. Let G3 Iron give you a dose of reality. Your league start sucks because you haven't prepared properly. That's why. Why is it that the same players can consistently produce the same results league after league after league? We're all susceptible to RNG. So why is it that some players, even if they don't have good RNG, are still able to continually progress faster and get to their goals in a more efficient and more fun way than some others? One of the reasons why is because some players choose to blame RNG, and some players choose to look for where their build and where their selections and where their planning has failed, and then adapt and make changes based on that. Your league start will suck if you do not have a plan for meeting your goals. What are your goals for this league? Do you want to take on some of the new Uber content that's available, whether that's Uber Breach, Uber Blight, maybe the Uber 5-way timeless domain conflict? Maybe you want to hit a new level cap that you've never hit before. Maybe you just want to go faster through the 10x story campaign. What are your goals? Do you have a plan to meet those goals, or are you just going to go, I'm going to wing it on launch day? That's believing the lie that RNG is the reason your start sucks. Your league start is going to suck if you don't have a pivot in mind. Remember how we were just talking about recognizing problems in your build and then having other alternative solutions to those problems? Have pivots ready. Like, what are you going to do if your build is dying too much? What are you going to do if your build is lacking damage? And it's relatively early on, and you can't simply throw currency at a problem. Are you comfortable with refarming a particular zone? Are you comfortable with trading other people in the league? Are you comfortable farming a particular area over and over again? Or maybe not. What are you comfortable with? Have a pivot in mind, because if you don't and your league start goes poorly because of RNG, guess what? That's a recipe for a boring, disappointing, frustrating weekend. Your league start will suck if you don't know the weaknesses of your build. You might actually be intentionally running through content that your build is not designed to handle, and you're going to go, why is it that this league starter build sucks? Well, it's because you're running through content that it's not built to handle. In fact, it's specifically maybe built with that content in mind and avoiding that content. So be aware of that. Lastly, your league start will suck if you don't have a plan for generating currency. This is most players' plan for generating currency. I kid you not. I'm just going to play the game and hope that the game gives me a bunch of currency. The more you play Path of Exile, yes, the more chances you'll have for the game to drop you something good. But you'll need to progress. For instance, imagine if you're playing Path of Exile and you just constantly farmed the beach, the very first encounter that you have, and you never kill Hillock, and you just go back in and you just keep remaking characters and refarming that same exact zone. That's not going to generate you currency. You need to progress at a rate that is comparable to the rest of the league. That's a discussion that could be had on another day in and of itself, but you need to have a plan for generating currency. If you're constantly farming at a zone that is equal to or below the rest of the league, chances are even the good drops that you might have inside your zone aren't going to be worth that much. Eventually, just through playtime, you'll acquire currency. But in comparison, you won't acquire currency in compared to what you could be bringing in if you were at the league average or slightly above in terms of the content that you are taking on. So have a plan for generating currency. Don't just rely on, well, I just hope that I get lucky. Thanks so much for joining us for today's discussion. I do hope that the 316 Scourge League is an awesome league. This is like make or break league for me and for Path of Exile moving forward. So I really hope that this is just going to be an awesome league where we can all sink tons of time and energy and have a ton of fun with Scourge League. But what mistakes would you want to share with the community? Drop us a comment down below. Let us know what mistakes maybe you've experienced, or maybe what mistakes you have witnessed other players make or complain about, and then share that with the community. So then that way, hopefully all of us can have a more fun and less frustrating, exciting start to our 316 Scourge League. Thanks so much for joining us, and I hope that this upcoming 316 Scourge League is the league a Mirror of Calandra drops for you. If you'd like any more information about the topics we chatted about today, links are provided down below in the video description. The G3 community has grown a ton over the last several years, and that's thanks to viewers like you and faithful Patreon supporters. Big shout out to longtime supporters and first-time supporters for this month.